Hey everyone, so I'm back for the second day of pie making. Today we're going to start with peeling, coring the apples. To make my life easier, I got myself a spiralizer peeler core attachment for my KitchenAid off Facebook Marketplace. It's certainly saved me a lot of time already, and I'm really liking it. It's probably about the third time I've used it.
If you want to check out my first video on pie making, I made the pie crust. Check the link above.
Okay, so really simple to use. You stick the apple on the skewer and then just slide it until it's ready to go and turn on your KitchenAid as per normal. Okay, so then it's just simple, just taking off the spiral of the apple. So nice even apple slices, easy to work with. And then removing the core, which I found easiest to do with a butter knife so far. Okay, so I'm just going to do this for like 6 to 9 pounds of apples. So everything's going in one bowl at the moment, that's fine. When I go to put the pies together or mix the pie filling, I'll separate the spiralized apples and the apple peels. The apple peels will go to the chickens. Currently I have 9. And the apple cores are actually all going in the compost because chickens, like humans, can't eat the apple seeds. So those will go in the compost. Alright, just like many other homesteaders, I have a trusty chicken scrap bucket. So this pretty much lives in my kitchen from, well, now April through to November, when we're doing a lot more food preservation projects. The chickens will get whatever is safe for them, and we just try to not give too much at one time because it's really important with layers that they're getting the right amount of protein. And we have a balanced layer feed that we give them, and they get to free range when the fox is not trying to eat them. But yeah, so just try not to give too much. So today they're just gonna get those apple peels. Hi, are you gonna eat apples? I don't think so. Okay, so nice big bowl of peeled and spiralized apples. You'll notice some of them still have the skins on. Those will most likely dehydrate for apple chips, and I'll try to show you that also. I've got a really basic filling recipe. Chris has asked me to make 1 apple pie and 1 apple blueberry. Sounds pretty easy, but I maybe don't want to flavor it the same as I would just a standard apple pie. So this one just has cinnamon instead of an apple pie spice. And I think that will go well with the blueberries and not overwhelm it with the flavors of nutmeg or allspice. So even though the KitchenAid did a lot of the work for me, I'm still going to slice some of the apples. I'll show you. So we're going to slice in half just to make nice little half moons. You'll notice I'm going to separate some of those ones with peels because I've got some picky eaters in the family and they're very sensitive to textures. So we'll try to make a nice apple pie for them with no peels. Some of them are going to love that I admitted that. So the peeler spiralizer obviously doesn't take off any bruised bits. These apples I've had now for some of them almost a month. So I'm just taking off that soft bits, and that can go to the chickens.
I know my apples should be lasting so much longer in my house. We have a insulated concrete foundation house to the roof line, and it's extremely airtight, and I have yet to find the appropriate setting so my vegetables don't go moldy or soft on the counter. If you have any tips other than putting them in the fridge, please let me know in the comments below.
So this recipe calls for 5 medium-sized apples. Nice thing about when they get the spirals, they're really all together, so you could measure that out pretty easily. So I'm going to double this, so I'll do another 5 apples. 10 apples into the bowl, and we've got a few set aside here for dehydrating for later. For this filling recipe, it calls for the 5 apples, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 6 tablespoons of flour, and 2 tablespoons of butter. The butter we'll add just before we put the top filling on. Use a spatula that can go in the dishwasher for easy use. All nice and mixed up. So that is our filling done. I'm gonna swap out a few things here, and I'm gonna roll out my pie crust and get my pie pans ready, as well as my oven preheating. So we're gonna preheat the oven to 425 degrees, and we are also going to line a baking sheet with tin foil. So the first time I read the instructions for making a pie, I read the instructions and it said to place a baking sheet underneath the pie pan. And I went, oh, I'm using my cast iron pie pan, so I'm not going to burn the bottom. I don't need to do that. Apparently, the instruction is there because the apple pie is going to drip. So when my apple pie started to drip, it actually lit on fire in the oven, all of the sugar that had caramelized on the bottom. And that is how I learned my lesson. And now I always make sure to put an additional pan underneath. This is our pie crust that we put in the fridge overnight. We made this yesterday. It's probably last in the fridge up to a week. Other than that, you would want to freeze it. Maybe wrap it in saran wrap and place it in a freezer bag. I have yet to do that. I've frozen some pies whole, but not yet just the pie crust. Our pie crust is actually quite a bit more firm than I anticipated when taking it out of the fridge. So I'm gonna let that soften up here on the counter for a few minutes. And I'm gonna get to doing my second pie filling. So today I'm trying to make 2 pies to take with me to my family Easter dinner. And I also wanna make some miniature hand pies. Maybe this is something that I can sell at a farmer's market or my farm stand, or just enjoy for snacks for us without making a whole pie for 2 people. So I've tried to make miniature pies before in a muffin tin, but it didn't really work out for me because I had just used like the half moon size pieces of an apple. So I'm actually going to dice these quite a bit smaller. I think it'll make a better texture, and it should actually be able to fit inside of those hand pies. So you can see much smaller pieces. these mini hand pies, I'm going to use a slightly different recipe for the filling. Something that I would more traditionally use for the apple pie that will have nutmeg and cinnamon included in that apple pie spice. I just mix mine as I go. I don't really have an apple pie spice prepared ahead of time. So this is 2 cups of chopped apples. I think I have more, 4 to 6. So I'm gonna do, again, double the ingredients of making the filling. And this one's a bit lighter on the sugar, and that's okay. So I like this recipe. It gives a range for cinnamon. I guess you get to decide if you like cinnamon or not. And you can put a half a teaspoon to a full teaspoon. I like cinnamon, so we're gonna go with 2 teaspoons for this double batch. Nutmeg is just 1/8 per batch, so we're gonna do 1/4. This recipe also calls for some vanilla in the filling. So I have my dehydrator trays. I'm just gonna get the rest of the apples that had the peels left on them laid out and get those ready to go. I will try to remember to turn that on when I'm done filming. Just think about the spiralizer for when dehydrating these, it gets them a nice even width. So they dehydrate pretty evenly versus if I had hand chopped them. Some might be thicker, some might be thinner, and then your drying time is just kind of all over the place. Everybody likes their textures different. I find I enjoy the dehydrated apples with the peels on, not really loving them without peels. Pie crust is now actually workable, but still very cold. You definitely want to work with a cold pie crust. That's pretty important. I've got some tinfoil pie pans so I can transport them to my event. So this baking mat is great. It's non-stick. It was a gift for Christmas. I do still just lightly flour my surface. Personal preference. I also know that one of my batches I probably put too much water in the pie crust. So adding a little extra flour at this point is not going to hurt it. Bench cutter. And we're just going to cut that pie crust roughly in half. It'll make it much easier to work with. Still pretty cold. Okay, pie crust is definitely bigger than what we need, so we're just gonna gently set it into this pan. Trim the extra with a nice sharp knife. All right, and then we have that first apple pie filling. Number 2 for the top. So I'm just gonna lay it on there. I'm gonna trim again, and then we're gonna press them together. Ready to go in the oven. We've cut some holes for venting, and we'll also be able to tell that this pie is done when the filling is bubbling up through those holes. You want to catch it before the filling comes out too much and burns. It should just be a nice golden brown. We're going to stick this one in the fridge while we get the second one ready. My crust is still super firm, even though we've already assembled the other pie. So I'm just gonna take a break rather than exhaust myself with trying to roll this one out. Chris should be done work soon. Maybe he'll do that one for me. Thanks. Okay, so our pie crust finally warmed up enough that we could get it rolled out. I put together that apple blueberry pie. I just added in 1 cup of frozen blueberries to the apples. We'll just add the top and we'll be ready to go. And hit pause again. Okay, now I'm gonna start working on the apple hand pies. I just have a round cutter. I got a set of fondant cutters from Michaels, just because they had a good variety of sizes, and that's what I'm using today. I actually didn't make enough pie crust for all the filling that I have today. I might actually make another batch either here today or maybe tomorrow. Okay, so all of our circles for our pies are ready. I'm just gonna get together a quick egg wash because it recommends in the recipe using the egg wash to help seal the hand pies. So we're gonna get that together real quick. Parchment lined baking pan just to make cleanup easy. I expect that these are gonna ooze just like a normal apple pie. Hopefully I can get them sealed tight enough. So our pie filling for our hand pies chopped much smaller than what we did for our traditional pies. It says to evenly distribute. I didn't do what the recipe said, so there's no evenness. We're just gonna whack in some apple mixture here, leaving some space. Try to heap it up a bit. And then secure a pastry brush. Little hand pie ready to go. Okay, so we got 5 from our leftovers from our previous pie crust batches. I made just 2 pie crust batches thinking I was doing pumpkin pie, and I'm doing apple pie, which needs a top. So those 2 batches were just enough to do the pies I need to take to New Brunswick. These were just the offcuts that I had left over from trimming the pie crust. I'm gonna stick these in the fridge while I get another batch of pie crust ready to go, and I'll bake those after the full pies come out of the oven. Okay, so we got our next batch of pie crust quickly made up in the food processor. And I'm trying a different rolling pin this time. It has the spacers on it to get a better consistency of thickness of the pie crust. Because I found the last one was a bit thick for making the ham pies. And I'm just going to do this in steps because I've got the consistent thickness. I'm just going to cut out how many circles I have available. To use this rolling pin with the spacers for the pie crust. If I'm doing anything this small that I'm going to cut out again, definitely going to make sure to use this one. After a long day in the kitchen, we have a whole lot of things accomplished. A whole bunch of hand pies that turned out delicious. I'll make sure to link the recipes that I use down below, and make sure to check out my pie crust video for how I make that easily in a food processor. The apple chips also turned out really well, and I actually still have some stored now in February of 2021. We get both apples and apple chips often from our CSA, and I just never seem to be able to keep up with them. But on this day, we accomplished processing over 9 pounds of apples. And of course, our pies that are completed and were delicious. They were enjoyed by everyone at our Easter family dinner many months ago now, and I'm just getting to editing this video. I think this is the thing people underestimate about starting YouTube the most, is that it is definitely a learning curve to learn to edit your videos and all of the things that go along with that. But I'm so happy that I did, and I hope you'll stick around for more content like this. Like and subscribe, and maybe hit that bell notification. I'll be editing more content that I had filmed earlier and getting that out to you soon. Catch you guys on the next one.